This week on Windows Weekly, Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell take a look at Windows 24H2. Paul says, actually, that's the new Windows 12. Okay, he'll explain. We'll also talk about AI, that big Bing outage, what happened there. And finally, another game comes to Game Pass from Activision. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. Episode 883, recorded Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. It's so convoluted. It's time for Windows Weekly. Hello, all you winners and dozers. Glad you're here. Because Paul and Richard are here, and it'd be a shame not to have an audience for this fine thing that's about to happen. Paul Thurrott is at his home in Lower Macungie, PA. Hello, Paul.
What of it?
What of it?
Right, I am.
What about it? Hey, what of it? Richard Campbell is a nice Canadian up there in Mad Park, British Columbia.
Yeah. Sun's just starting to break out from a rainy morning.
Oh. Isn't that nice?
I'll show you if you like.
Let's see.
We had a similar experience, except ours was construction trucks at 7 o'clock in the morning.
It's almost
kind of like that.
Really.
Oh, yeah. Norman, the loons. Do you have loons up there?
Oh, yes.
Oh, they sound crazy, don't they?
Yeah. It's the sea lions hanging around right now, the obnoxious part. Yeah.
They come down to San Francisco to infest us after they're done with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the reply of the week, we begin with, on Windows Weekly, Paul Thurrott has stuck it in here. Is this on the site formerly known as Twitter? What is this?
It is, yeah.
And is this a reply to you?
Yeah, this was just I rip on, headlines that are bad. And this is a really bad one. And then
Microsoft, the quote is, Microsoft claims Windows 11 is better than 10 for celebrity gossip, weather, and stocks. And of course, Paul, in his usual way, says, it's this laser focus on quality that keeps me on this platform.
Yes.
Now, you got a lot of views, 40,767 likes. And then somebody, you've blurred his name.
Well, I'm not trying to make fun of him. He misspelled this word, but it's beautiful.
It's so convoluted.
And I'm like, that's it.
That's a good word.
Convoluted.
I like it. It's convoluted.
Yes.
It's rare we get a title for the show right at the beginning, but I think
convoluted.
So convoluted.
It's so convoluted. It's pretty darn good. You're gonna have to work hard to
we
beat
all know
that
what
one.
it means.
Yeah, exactly. Convoluted.
It's good.
All right. Yeah, I was remarking because as we know, there might be a big breaking news story in the next day or so, and I was remarking that I clicked. It said in big letters, the widget bar on my Windows 11 said breaking news. I thought, and I clicked
it, baby,
and it says finally video of somebody's arrest at the PGA tournament last year or something. Breaking, really? And then there's a picture of a weasel in my search lozenge.
My top headline there is the only major actor still alive from Gilligan's Island.
Who is the only major actor still alive?
I am not clicking on that.
I'm sorry.
It's not Bob Denver. It's not Tina Louise. It's not the skipper. Who could it be?
Is Marianne still around?
Marianne must be Marianne or the professor. Maybe it's the professor.
I'm
don't look. Don't click.
The minor actors were.
Don't click. Professor and Marianne.
I'd rather be ignorant on this topic.
You don't need to know. No one needs to know. That's the worst link bait I've ever seen.
What am I going to do? I'm going to replace a childhood memory with that information?
Yeah.
And
I actually,
will be, temporary anyway.
That happened to me many years ago when I interviewed the skipper, Alan Hale Jr., whose father was the great Alan Hale Sr. And he was a skipper, but he told me, we didn't get much money, in those days, TV, even though they reran that show forever. Right. He said, maybe a few $100. So he was selling Valvoline oil treatments or something. It was like, that's why he was on that's why he was touring to sell oil treatments. And I thought, this is sad. This is my childhood ruined.
Yeah.
Ruined. All right. Enough of that. We're here to talk about one thing and one thing only.
On that note, I do have some Valvoline oil I'd like to sell. Do you mind if I do a little 30-second spot or something?
Ay, caramba. Tina Louise is still with us. That's the just the
Tina
Ginger.
Louise, wow.
So you didn't Ginger. So you didn't have to click.
There you go.
Isn't that a Twitter site or probably X now? It doesn't say Twitter anymore. Isn't that an X account was saved you a click where they would?
Let me tell you, the worst group I've ever joined in my life it's called Deadamites Gone But Not Forgotten. It's on Facebook.
No, they really
The
missed.
time anyone posts there is when someone dies.
They really
and it is horrific.
They missed a real They could have said not Deadamites. Or
Night of the Living Deadam.
They are Deadamites.
You know, like I just don't. It's just sad. Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't like stuff like this.
Okay, moving on. Windows 11. Memories.
In the wake of last week was a big week, right?
Was.
Microsoft land. And for me in particular, I've been looking forward to this ARM stuff for a long time. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on there. So obviously I've spent the several days I've been home since Seattle obsessing over that trip and the events of that trip. And the first thing I did was come through my threat to make a video of each time Microsoft referenced the MacBook Air or Apple during last week's Copilot event. Wasn't as many as I thought, honestly, but it's worth watching. I think it's only, 40 something seconds long or whatever.
Should we watch now? Let's do it. Let's all.
Yeah, why not?
Let's all
quick.
watch it together.
Quick.
Let's watch.
58% faster than the most advanced MacBook Air with the M3 processor.
20% more than the latest MacBook Air 15-inch. It's outperformed the MacBook Air 15-inch by up to 23% on peak performance, up to 58% on sustained multi-threaded throughput performance. Prism is as efficient as Rosetta 2.
You can do all those things faster than on a MacBook Air
5,
and across twice as many screens. Latest MacBook Air.
6,
Far longer than MacBook Air.
7 is the MacBook Air
8
with M3. Almost 2 times as fast as the MacBook Air over here.
9.
$200 in savings versus the equivalent MacBook.
Wow. It's as if they're a little jealous of the MacBook Air or something.
Yeah.
Blame them.
There was a pretty good story in Mac World about why this was so misguided, and I agree with most of it, honestly.
All benchmarks are sus, right?
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing for them to be doing. But anyway,
Gates was the guy who really,
right?
Gates really was the guy who defined the idea of you never say your competitor's product or name.
Yeah, but look, when the second gen MacBook Air came out, Intel created this UltraBook spec. Asus was the first out of the gate with I can't remember the name of the laptop, but it was very much a MacBook Air clone.
Mm-hmm. I
Samsung
cut myself on the edges of it.
Like what's that?
I think I cut myself on the edges of it.
Yeah,
so sharp.
It was a
julienne
UX something
fries.
like UX 50 or UX 30 or whatever.
There's Swift.
I had it.
It's called the Swift, right?
No, this is way before that. This is Asus, not Asus.
Not Acer.
But we obviously we have beautiful laptops in the PC space.
Didn't Intel create the UltraBook before Apple did the MacBook Air, or no? It was Air and then UltraBook.
The notion that Intel could do anything thin and light is ludicrous, for starters. But the notion that Intel could have invented anything new or unique in the last 20 years is also ludicrous. So I'm going to go out on the limb and say no.
No. The answer is no.
That's my educated guess there.
No.
Anyway, we obviously have great PCs, but the hope here is with ARM that we'll get some of those attributes that are so desirable in the MacBook Air, like fans. But anyway, so this isn't really worth going down the list per se, but I was really struck sitting in the audience at that event by how many references there were to the past. And I mean, like many, many references, explicit and implicit. If you think about something like that recall feature is like, this is timeline. Like you're doing timeline again. Like there was stuff like that. But I was going to write an article about all of the references to the past. I only got through the first 7 minutes. And I was like, you know what? This is enough. Satya Nadella referenced the past explicitly 7 times in 7 minutes, like 7 discrete events from the past. which I thought, is always kind of interesting for just from a perspective point of view or whatever. And some of the references were to things that weren't necessarily positive events, like Windows 8 and that whole, from the silicon to the, I always forget the phrase because I'm trying to block that part of my life out. But there was just a bunch of that stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The other thing is I mentioned last week that sitting there in the audience and Yusuf Mehdi said, you can now pre-order. And I was like, boop, www.surface.com, pre-order, immediately had buyer's regret, not because I don't want this device, but because I wasn't sure if I got the right one. And I eventually went back and canceled it and got a kind of a beefier version. And the rationale there is just that on the one hand, I wanted something that compared head to head as close as possible to the MacBook Air that I have. That's actually not possible because of the way that Microsoft limits the ways you can configure these devices. So for example, 24 gigabytes of RAM is a weird amount, but like a 16 gigabyte, 512 gigabyte storage option, it's not there. It does not exist. You can't get that in a Surface laptop. 15 anyway. You also can't get 2 of the colors. If you want to get more than 16 gigs of RAM, you can only get 1 of the colors. I mean, it's this whole kind of weird limiting thing. But I if you had told me, I have to think back to this, maybe back in February, that I was about to spend over $4,000 on laptops in the next month or two, I'd be like, right, why would I ever do such a thing? But between the MacBook Air and the new Surface laptop, which I did not intend in any way, shape, or form for this to be like the best configuration, but that's what it is. It's like 32 gigs of RAM and terabyte of storage. It's expensive. It's not. It is not what I want.
And folks, if you're just thinking, oh, well, he must be one of those rich guys. He drives a '92 Toyota Corolla. Don't get any ideas here. Yeah. Actually, it's in some ways worse than that because it's a what year is it? It's an 11-year-old BMW where the middle rearview mirror has come off from the glass and is dangling there like a kid's. BMW never expected you to own it that long. That's really the
well. The reason it's not fixed is because they want to charge us $1,800 to glue that thing back onto the glass.
That's BMW for you.
And we're gonna Gorilla Glue it anyway. Not a new or expensive vehicle by any shape.
You spend all of your hard-earned money on silly things like. What did you buy? You bought a Pro Surface laptop?
Surface laptop, 15-inch Surface laptop.
Nice. I think you're going to like it.
Laptops.
Yeah,
I think I am too.
You can never have too many.
I mean, I'll have other devices in for review. I know I'm going to get some HP and Lenovo devices, for example. So there'll be something I can compare it to beside the MacBook Air, obviously. But we'll see. We shall see. Lots of weirdness there with the configuration stuff. Microsoft does not really have a full slate.
I'm so tempted because I really want to. I think I'm going to get that the dev box though.
Yeah. I pre-ordered one of those.
That seems like
I did too.
Oh, you got that too. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any. I've put my name on the list. I've not gotten.
You didn't actually pre-order it. You just gave me your email address.
Yeah. You think it'll be in short supply?
I don't think. I think they've got no indication of when they're actually going to ship it.
Right.
Oh.
This is a major improvement over the thing they shipped last year. I think it's going to be fantastic, frankly.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I'm not kidding. I'm probably going to turn it into a Home Assistant server almost immediately to be able to run its own large language model for the house. Then I'll get another one.
I'm thinking I need a computer that I don't want to use. To dedicate to the home studio for, so I could put Zoom on it. And if you use it, you have a risk of crapping it up. So that will be like the home studio computer.
Yeah.
That seems like a good use for it. Can you put Linux on any of these things or do we know yet?
So
I know that's a terrible question.
The answer is yes.
Oh.
So there was they announced something recently. They've been appearing at Linux events. They're making sure that all of the Linux distros have what they need to be able to boot up on this thing. And
good on you.
So yes,
good on you.
Apparently, they've been doing that the whole time with Snapdragon. I wasn't really aware of this, but yes, the answer is yes.
Well, remember they have to run on Android, and that's basically Linux. So,
yeah, and certainly HA runs on Linux. So that's my intent. Drivers.
It'd be a good home assistant device, wouldn't it? Low energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You could leave it on all the time.
The normal dedicated HA machines are $200-$300 Odroids, right? Like they're much smaller. This is a crazy torquey box
beast.
for that job.
Yeah, it's a beast.
But the hip thing now is to use an LLM with HA, and typically you do that through the open AI APIs. But why would you want to run it locally?
Yeah, call it Jarvis. Say, Jarvis, open the windows, not the garage door, the window, the curtains. Jarvis, that kind of thing. It'll be fun.
Is it raining?
That's the old one.
Hey Siri, is it raining? Who was that? Zoe Deschanel who had to it actually had to ask Siri.
Standing in a window where you can see it pouring outside.
Yeah. Is it raining?
Yeah, you imbecile. It's raining.
No, that's a gaffer, a grip with a hose, actually. You're in okay. Yeah, right.
That's one of my favorite dog memories is my dog looking out the back door, seeing it raining. So they went and checked the front door, see if it was raining there too. Right. And then he was really annoyed. Like,
that's actually not that's not as dumb as it sounds. I was outside of a restaurant in Boston looking through the open windows to a TV that was showing the Red Sox game. And it was pouring at the right. I could see it was pouring. And I was like, man, it's really raining in that game. And I said, wait a minute. That looks like they're playing at home. And just that moment, it was like, like it hadn't been raining like where I was in Boston, but it was where the game was. And then it happened like simultaneously with me realizing they were home.
Hey.
All right. Well, let's do a little. I know you just bought a laptop, Paul, but I kind of want to talk about this laptop and maybe change your mind, my friend. This portion of Windows Weekly brought to you by these great laptops from HP and Intel, and I'm such a fan of this. It's plugged in right now, so that's how we got the audio out and all of that. But this is what I'm using for the show now, and I'm blown away. It's the new HP EliteBook 1040G11, HP's first commercial AI PC. It has an Intel Core Ultra processor, which is the first Intel chip to have that AI, at least commercial chip, to have that AI acceleration. It's great. The battery life is so good on this. I don't even need to plug in the battery. And light is a feather. AI acceleration, it's great for biz to empower your workforce and deliver exceptional performance, battery life, and world-class security. With the HP EliteBook 1040G11, you get SmartSense. This is that HP proprietary technology which monitors the PC as you're using it. It makes automatic adjustments to the energy hogging resources, giving you, they say, up to 29 hours battery life. I haven't verified that, but I have to say, I've gone days without plugging it in. It's pretty remarkable. It balances the fan, the battery, the processor, everything. When you need it, you've got the power. When you don't, it sips away at power so you can last longer. Let you focus on bringing your biggest ideas to life. Let HP handle the juice. Also, man, the audio on this, well, you heard it. I was just playing that audio out of this for the your video, Paul. This is the Poly Studio audio HP acquired. It's got Poly AI-driven audio. Camera's got Windows Studio effects, which I really like. When I'm on a Zoom or a call or a Teams call, I have automatic face framing, so as I move, it frames my face. I could be looking down at the keyboard or the screen, but it looks like, because it's got automatic AI eye contact. It's really remarkable. Adaptive dynamic voice leveling for optimal voice clarity. That's based on your environment. They do background noise reduction and more. And of course, Copilot's built in. It's got that Copilot key. It's the AI assistant that automates your workflow by suggesting personalized optimizations and streaming for efficiency. Use learning deadlines and personal productivity patterns to help you set priorities, manage your time effectively. It's like having a little buddy right there in the computer. Of course, Windows 11 Pro on this. The latest Intel, it says it right there, it's Intel V Pro, the latest Intel Core Ultra 5 or 7. I didn't even mention this screen. This is a 14-inch OLED display. I'm never buying an LCD panel again. OLED is just so gorgeous. I just love it. A 5-megapixel camera, HP Wolf security for business built in. So much more. This is the newest laptop from HP, their AI laptop, the EliteBook 1040G11. It's perfect for business. It'll adapt to your workers' personal needs and behaviors so they can regain meaningful time and focus on meaningful work. HP.com, that's the place to go to find out more. Just search for the HP EliteBook 1040 G11, and you can see all the specs for yourself. There's also a link in the show notes if you want to click that. HP.com, search for the HP EliteBook 1040 G11. All right, little buddy, I'm going to tether you back up again so we can use you for the show. But this is great. I've got the Ethernet there plugged in. I have an adapter. I should mention that. As long as we're comparing to MacBook Airs, look at that. Type A USB port, Type C USB port. That's on one side. On the other side, a full HDMI port and 2 more Type Cs, plus a headphone microphone jack. It's got a Courage port. I love it. Thank you, HP, for not abandoning me. I'll plug that right in. Look at that right. HDMI goes right in there. There's the power. You use Type C power. It's just great. All right, back to the show. Sorry to interrupt, gents. Let's talk about Windows Insider. We got a release preview.
Yeah. So this one is, confusing. I don't know what's confusing these days. So last week, a 24H2 build came to the release preview channel. They were previously testing this in Canary and Dev and then just Dev. And it skipped right over beta because, we're just rolling the dice now. And it landed in release preview. So typically what this would mean is that it would hit stable soon, right? And so if you look at the calendar, you can figure out for yourself that we are 1, 2, 3. Yesterday was the week D of the schedule. We did not get this as a preview there. So it's possible it would be June, maybe Patch Tuesday, which is the 11th in preview, or maybe the week D in June or whatever. This is the thing that's going to have that staggered release, right? You can get it early in the year because it's going to be the version of Windows that comes out on those Copilot Plus PCs. But then it's going to have a bigger release in the fall for everybody. So we'll see. Everything's so different now. It's impossible to predict, but
because it was so possible before.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Yeah. It's impossible to know what's happening.
I noticed you just stopped talking about Windows 12.
Because 24H2 is Windows 12, right? They've decided
okay.
that branding was just too
that's interesting.
They're going to wait until Apple releases a Mac OS 12. Then
we didn't want to convolate the Windows releases.
I didn't realize that. I too, like Richard, have been waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it did, but they renamed it as the way down, so I didn't know.
Yeah, this is half speculation, half unnamed source told us type stuff. But yeah, internally there was this debate because they wanted to kind of move on, but actually it's just too complicated to have too many versions of Windows out in the world.
Yeah.
I remember the days when Windows 10 was the last version of Windows. Remember that?
And then they kept making new versions of Windows 10, and everybody was suffering.
Everybody's
I'm more
absolute.
I'm talking about in the IT world, they all want to skip a Windows 11, right?
Yeah.
Like that, because that's what they've been doing since XP.
Right.
You skip a version.
Microsoft has been trying to break its commercial customers of these habits.
Yep.
Since it's had commercial customers, and its success rate is about, 0.
Yeah.
It has never worked. So
yeah, there's always this idea that Microsoft is really good at figuring out which way the crowd is going and run in front of them. So, there's the whole thing of the crowd's got to get the act together and go in a direction that makes them want to run in front of them.
Yeah. Look, for me, this is a monumental release because Microsoft has now, I got to think about this. September. So let's do the math on this. September to the end of 3, we're going to call it 9 months, has changed the location of the Copilot icon 3 times.
Right.
And so when this is fully deployed, it will just be an app icon like other pinned apps in the taskbar. It's not going to be over on the far right anymore. So it's hard not to see that one as a personal dig because I spent so much time and effort fixing all those screenshots. But that's okay. You got to keep Paul busy. So maybe he won't.
You were bored. We can tell.
Yeah. The weird part about this for me is I don't know when to even worry about that because, like I said, it's not really clear when this comes out for everybody. One of the other things that will happen when that happens, Copilot in Windows will no longer be a pane on the side of the screen. It's going to be just a standard app window. So if you saw that Copilot Plus PC event last week, you would have seen that recall experience was really an app. I asked the guy who made it, I just wanted, to be clear, this is an app, right? I mean, there was a little tray icon as well, but you run the thing, it's like an app icon in the tray or in the taskbar. And he said, yeah, no, it's a standalone app. So there's some good, bad, and different stuff tied to that. But, for people that want to not have things in their system and so forth, I think that will make that easier. So whatever, that's fine. Looking through the other improvements, or I'll call them changes, I mean, none of them are a big deal. It's kind of one of those where Microsoft giveth, Microsoft taketh away situation. So if you're familiar with the quick settings interface, for example, you know that today in Windows 11, you can customize the little cards or tiles that are there. And now they're going to let you scroll through all of the available cards or tiles, whatever they're called. And you can't configure it in any way. Like, you actually can't get rid of any of them. Like, you have to accept all of them, and you can't change their order. And it's like, okay, so, typical Windows 11 experience, I guess, is what I'd call.
Well, they try to think they know better than you, but as opposed to Apple, who knows they know better than you.
Yeah, I mean, Apple probably does know better than me. I don't think anyone at Microsoft doing this stuff even has thought of this stuff. I don't even think it's a notion of superiority. I think it's just a certain cluelessness that you take things away and people notice, but we'll see how that goes. They do have a rich history of coming back a year or two later and adding back the stuff they ruined, including, by the way, that File Explorer drag and drop feature, right, which is coming back. So, typical. You'll be able to zip files to 7-zip and tar formats, which is kind of cool, instead of just WinZip, if you want, or just zip. And I think we might have talked about this. We talked about this last week. I feel like we might have the Git integration, all that stuff. So not too much today. If you can install this today, but it is right now, this, it's one of those things. It's a rolling release. So there's really not much to look at. If you are in the beta channel, there's even less to look at. They also had a build last week. No new features. This build is a 23H2 build that arrived after the release preview got 24H2, because again, nothing matters anymore. And we live in a universe where rocks are flying in space and it rains frogs. I mean, nothing makes any sense. So don't even try to make sense of it. There is nothing to be had.
The really great part is they're not putting out documents saying this is how this is going to work going forward. They're just stuff.
I listen, you just, in the time you've been on the show, that I've been obsessing over this, and I talk about it a lot, and I try to make sense of it. And they just don't care. There's nobody's
concerned.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel where they're like, all right, we tried all the different permutations. We got a strategy. We're going forward with it.
This is the great thing about being an insider, is that they're perfectly willing to show you the randomness that goes on inside the company.
Yeah. Yeah. If you like chaos, it's not a bad place to be.
You're one of us now. You're an insider. Welcome to the chaos.
But one of us, we all have a different experience. It's just it's so weird to me. But anyway, I don't, maybe it's because I came into this with kind of a computer science point of view, and what they're doing is
crazy talk,
not computer science. And then this just happened after we started the show, in fact, or as we started the show. But Microsoft is putting a new sticky notes experience into Windows. They're testing it in the Insider program. I know it's coming through the OneNote app.
You work in OneNote? I thought we were all supposed to go to Loop.
Look,
I don't hear much about Loop
again.
anymore.
If you're looking for sense, you've come to the wrong place. I'm not sure how many times I can say the same thing.
Whatever happened to Loop?
Loop's still out there.
So, all right, maybe actually, Richard, you probably use OneNote. Do you use OneNote?
I use OneNote a lot, and I've been trying to move.
So then you would remember that OneNote at one time, or maybe still today, because I don't use it anymore, had this little thing that would run in the tray that was like a little mini OneNote experience outside of OneNote.
Yes, and that feature I never used, that one.
Okay, and it's like Quick Notes or something like that, whatever it was called.
It was sticky notes. Yeah, absolutely.
It was okay. I think this is sort of an upgraded experience for that. The reason it's considered sort of something related to Windows, because it will be in Windows 10 and 11, is that there's going to be a system-wide keyboard shortcut that will launch this new sticky notes experience, which is not quite like the old one where you had little individual notes, but a little bit. It's nicer looking, I guess. It's less like a traditional sticky note, but I don't get it, and I don't care because I'm not going to use OneNote, and these guys can, what they can do.
I'm just amazed that they're putting energy into OneNote because it just seemed like the neglected stepsister for forever.
Yep.
Right. So the fact that anything's showing up in OneNote, it's like, what, did you draw the short straw? Like, how did this happen?
Right. Right. Welcome, summer interns.
Yeah.
We're going to go through a catalog of Microsoft brands from the past that you might have thought were dead, but you're going to be working on it.
Like the guy picked last for dodgeball, you're working on OneNote.
So there's that. Okay, so that's all we have, I think, for the insider. And then just two related things. The Microsoft Edge team put out an interesting post. I think it was yesterday. They talked about this like it was performance, and I guess performance. I hear Microsoft Edge. Whoa,
wow.
Well, my power just dipped, but
there you go. You usually get that stuff in Mexico.
We do have a enormous set of trucks, like a block from here, working on.
If you had
you might get backhoe fade.
Microsoft Surface laptop with Snapdragon Elite Pro X.
Yeah, I wouldn't be online because they don't have 5G support, so it wouldn't have helped. Yeah, I just would have had really good uptime.
Right, the battery would go.
Yeah,
yeah. That was
lots of time
incredible.
to not be connected to the internet with it.
Yep. Yeah. Anyway, so when I hear Microsoft Edge and performance, I always think back to the early days of Microsoft Edge when they would do those side-by-side tests, remember, with Chrome and sometimes Firefox.
No, the good old HTML5 drag race days in IE9.
And
those are fun days.
That got really silent when they switched to Chromium for some reason. It was weird. I just stopped talking about that. But
the numbers seemed awfully close most of the time.
Yeah. So performance to different people means different things, but there's this perception of performance. And of course, when you run a big app like Edge, which is full of all kinds of stuff, kind of bristling with features. What you're really talking about is a lack of responsiveness, right? And so they are working to further, they call it modularize, but let's say componentize Edge from a user experience standpoint, and rewriting each of these components one at a time to make them more efficient. So they did this first with the Browser Essentials interface, which is something that was added to Edge sometime in the past year. It's basically a little dashboard. And it gives you some overhead information about the browser and how it's doing. And it includes that built-in VPN feature, for example, is in there. And they saw massive performance advantages to this. And so now they're moving on to other parts of the UI. So they've done the favorites interface over again. That's 40% faster now than it was before. And they're going to move on to basically each component in turn. And by the end of the year, this thing should be less of a pig. So it's kind of like the teamsification, I guess, of Edge, in a sense that they have this big pig of an app and they're trying to de-bloat it. And in this case, because it's not that hard. It's kind of like Windows 7. It's like this interface was built with JavaScript. I mean, man, if only there was a quicker way to do this. Instead of doing client-side rendering. So it's still web technologies, but of course, the underlying web platform has improved a lot over the past several years. So they've figured out a system, they're implementing it, and at some point they're going to open source or at least release this so other developers can add these kind of responsive capabilities to their web apps and to their products as well. And maybe it will feed upstream or downstream, I guess, into the Chromium browser as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, the other team, you're like, I'm excited to see you guys are up to stuff, right? Like,
yeah, right.
And not just adapting the new
cluttering
web
it with
features.
crap. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The modularization I'd like to see is a little dashboard where you can just turn off all the features you don't want. And
where's the plug my digital effluent flow?
Yeah. Could I just, kill the sidebar and, get back 50% of the RAM I'm using right now, something like that. So I don't think we're going to see that, but
yeah,
you never know where this.
By the way, Loop is pretty tied to Edge too. Like if I do an update to Edge, Loop closes and restarts as well.
Yeah, as a new app, right? It's got to be web based, right? It's probably using WebView too.
Yeah, probably.
So, yeah.
Doesn't that slow it down? I mean,
no, it's plenty. It's snappy and fast.
Okay.
It's just consuming a lot of memory.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
That's the real reason they raised the minimum for the Copilot Plus PCs. It had nothing to do with AI or SLMs. It's all about Loop.
Yeah, it's all about your effluent pipelines.
Anyway, And then this is only semi-related, I guess, but to kind of wrap up for about 3 seconds, my overview of earnings. The world's biggest PC maker, Lenovo, announced their latest quarterly and annual earnings. And year over year, they're doing great for the quarter. Year over year for the fiscal year, not so great, right? But that makes sense because the PC industry is recovering. According to them, they expect to see pre-COVID level sales in the this calendar year, and then they expect the AI PC segment will expand past the premium part of the market and move into the mainstream over the next few years. So they're hoping, at least they're saying, this will drive a new refresh cycle for the PC market, but we'll see. I mean,
well, as long as it's got a Copilot key, you know it's going to sell.
That's right. Yeah, the New York Times, I'm not going to get this 100% right, but it said, my PC has an AI key on it. Now what? I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you press it and see what happens? Like, what do you think's going to happen? You think like the stars are going to explode or something?
Takes over the world? Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, hey, you own Tesla now. It's a key. Relax.
Yeah, it's okay.
And that's it. There you go. I'm hoping I don't have to deal with any more earnings reports for a couple of weeks. That'd be good.
I really hate those, don't you? I just hate them.
Oh, it's just some of them are brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
Maybe for the next round, I'll start using AI to do number analysis. But the thing is, I got to check it. It's just going to make it longer.
Check yourself, as they say. Yeah. Our show today brought to you by a fine company you may have heard of called IT Pro. Remember them? They merged with ACI Learning. But, I got to say, the binge-worthy video-on-demand IT and cybersecurity training is better than ever. With IT Pro, you get certification ready with access to their full video library. Every time I look at this number, it goes up. It's now 7,250 hours of training. And it's not old dusty stuff. It's all up to date because they've got all these 8 studios running Monday through Friday all day, constantly updating the videos, the training, because the tests change, new tests come online, old certs go away, there's new versions of the software. This stuff is a moving target, but that's why you need the training, right? You got your cert a year ago, it's all new. 5 years ago, you might as well start from scratch. Fortunately, IT Pro makes it fun and interesting because they use trainers who are pros in the field already, so they're experts. But even more important, they have a passion for it. They love it. And that passion, that enthusiasm translates in the videos. They're really engaging. You get a premium training plan. You get so much more. You get practice tests. Always nice to take the exam before you pay for it. So you know you're ready, right? The virtual labs are great. You could set up Windows servers, Windows clients without even having Windows. You can do it in your browser. And I like that because if you screw it up, and I inevitably will, I can just close the tab. We'll start over tomorrow. MSPs love it because they can try configurations and setups before they actually implement them with the customers. IT Pro from ACI Learning makes training fun. They call it edutaining. Take your IT or cyber career to the next level. Be bold, train smart with ACI Learning. And we've got a great deal for you. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit. Use the offer code TWIT30, and please do, because that's how they know you saw it here. TWIT30, you'll want to because you'll save 30% on your first month, or if you subscribe for a year, your whole first year of IT Pro training. Remember that now. Go.acilearning.com/twit, and the offer code is TWIT30. New offer. New start. Summer's here. Let's start a new career. Or if you've got an IT team at your employee, you'd be a great way to keep them up to date too. They love it. It's a great benefit for them, really. Go.acilearning.com/twit. Don't forget TWIT30 at checkout. Don't forget.
Yes.
Don't forget. You know what we haven't talked about in so long?
Mm-hmm.
AI.
Never heard of it.
I thought you were going to say Bing.
Bing.
Yeah, geez.
And I was like, there's a reason for that, Leo.
Actually, what happened last week? Because they were out for 24 hours, weren't they?
I think the hamster tripped.
Nice.
That's a big
caught
deal.
Up in the wheel.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't Azure in its entirety. It was just a few
The things.
things.
Yeah. So when you say something like Bing is down or there was a Bing outage, you can just cue the jokes up, right? Like people like, yeah, I'm surprised anyone even noticed, like that kind of thing. Okay.
Both guys were really upset.
Yeah. Right. The thing is, unfortunately, this backs a lot of other services, including things that are important like Copilot, right? DuckDuckGo, other third-party services use this. So actually it was a pretty big deal. And that thing was down for over 24 hours. Like it, and you could notice it if you ran Copilot in Windows, that thing would not work. Like it came up, the pane came up, it didn't do anything. And eventually you got a little, something happened, error message, whatever. So yeah, they have not, to my knowledge, described what happened. I'm sure it was a human error type deal. Maybe they're letting AI do the configuration now or something. I don't know. They could blame it on all kinds of things, but I haven't heard. I also, I don't know if you guys run into this, but I would imagine your audiences are of a similar technical bent, and that there's some percentage of them who are just like the AI nevers.
They're bent for sure, but I don't.
Separate issue.
I still deal with this. Like I will never use AI.
Yeah,
I
don't think anybody says never, but I think a lot of people say,
my guys do. Yeah,
it's kind of,
and I'm like,
you
are already using AI.
It's overhyped.
I get bad news for you.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
So, but this reminds me of, every time there was like a Gmail outage or an Exchange online outage or whatever, it's like, see, this is why I always put everything on premises.
Yeah, remember that? On the cloud.
Yeah, every time, like as if this random occurrence like justifies the horrible decision you made. And, without acknowledging the fact that this doesn't actually happen that much, whereas I'm sure the guy, Bob, working in your server closet is doing a much better job than Microsoft, but whatever.
Whatever.
Pick your poison. It's up to you. Anyway, I don't know anything more about this topic. I just, I'm fascinated that it was down for so long. I think that to me, that's the big thing. So.
Yeah, it's surprising it took that long to recover. Like, just revert, boys. Like, how hard could this be? What's going on?
Yep, this is why we have snapshots. Like, I don't know what that was all about. That was very strange. Maybe, unfortunately, with like distributed cloud infrastructure, I guess I could imagine a cascading series of, problems that spreads, and then, rolling that all back is a little more complicated than what I'm imagining. But I'd like to know more about this. And also, from Microsoft's perspective, the fact that this shut down so much, it's like, you might want to.
You just angered a whole bunch of customers. Now, I mean, on one hand, that's kind of useful to let people know, hey, we're important. On the other hand, it's like,
but that's
you
not
also
the way you want to
collect a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what to make of this. There is a Copilot or a version of Copilot available now in Telegram.
And it's Microsoft supported?
Yeah, Microsoft made it. I don't know what to think of this. So it's free. It doesn't require a subscription. There will be a limited number of interactions you can have per day, right? They're limiting the free accounts in some ways, which makes sense. They do that basically on the web, although not quite as limited as this. And we're getting into kind of a weird kind of matrix of capabilities issue, I think, with Copilot, where we have a free Copilot tier, of course. We have multiple paid Copilot tiers, each with some overlapping, but also some unique functionality. That stuff is being made available across those, I'll call them three, but there's really more than three offerings in other places, like Windows, where, for example, one of the weird inconsistencies is that you get access to the like the image creation stuff explicitly, although you could just do it from a normal prompt, but you don't get access to the custom GPTs for some reason. Like it will probably happen, but we don't know when, So in many ways, it's become what Microsoft 365 is, right? Like we're going to add a feature to Word and take a guess which version or versions it's available in, and when or if it will ever come. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah. I saw an article the other, actually maybe today, that was talking about, a couple of features in Microsoft Word you might not know about. And one of them was this transcription feature, which my wife has been using for several years. It was only available in the web version of Word until within the past 6 to 7 months or something.
So weird.
Yeah, it's very strange. So this is a problem. It's always been a problem. in the Microsoft space, Microsoft 365 especially. And it's Teams has the same problem a little bit. And Copilot's absolutely already has this problem. So implementation of Copilot in different places is going to have some different little mix of features, right? It's going to be hard to keep track of this stuff. So I'm not sure what to say. Well, I'm not sure why this would even be there,
and this is sort of a classic problem too, because your customers get really angry when one implementation of the product doesn't have the same features as the other. Like you see this, it's one of the reasons to not do native mobile apps, because it's very hard to synchronize release of Apple and iOS and Android versions, and it really makes customers angry when you do that.
So the one place in my life where this has hit me the worst is the smart display in my kitchen. So for several years, 3-4 years, whatever it is, I've been using a Lenovo Google Assistant based smart display in the kitchen, right? Primarily to just show a photo, slide, show the stuff. Yep. And it's kind of fun because a new event will occur. We go on a trip, whatever, we get home, and you're already seeing pictures from that thing. It's nice.
Yeah.
But I tried a Pixel tablet recently. It works as a smart display when it's on that dock thing. It's got a bigger screen. I thought I'll just stick this in the kitchen. This will be better. And it is. It's nicer looking. It's got a better, quality experience, whatever. But one of the things I do all the time on the smart display is some picture will come up of something I don't like, or maybe it's a bad picture, whatever it is. It met the criteria for the playlist or whatever, but it's just out of focus or terrible. And I will say, Google, don't show this picture. And then you go through like a convoluted, what's that word again? A convoluted experience where it goes, okay, you want me not to ever, is that correct? It's like, just
are you sure? Are you really sure?
The version on Google or the Pixel tablet is even worse because it says, I'm sorry, that feature isn't available here yet. And it's like, oh, come on. Come on.
At least it doesn't walk away looking back over its shoulder every few
That's true. If it could, it would, Leo.
You want me. You know you do.
Give me that sad dog eye look. Like, oh, come on. You'll have fun on the farm.
You love this feature. Deep down, you know you love it.
Yeah. Speaking of Google.
Yes.
Google.
After testing their AI summary feature in Google search, they've basically gone live with this. I'm sure everyone has seen this. I'm sure most of you hate it, right? That the goal of this to me should be like answer the freaking question, and what it does instead is fill up a bunch of space above the fold, and then you scroll down so you can answer the question. So I guess it achieves some goal, but lots of people don't like it, and I would count myself among those. And
you're not still seeing it, are you?
The AI
overview? I think
summaries?
They turned that off, yeah.
Oh, did they? Oh, maybe because if they did, it was because of this.
Oh, yeah, because it was telling you to drink urine and eat rocks and put glue in your pizza.
So,
yeah.
Yes, right, exactly. So, there were, I guess they did. So there were ways to get around this with a little command line, but that doesn't help you when you're using a phone or whatever. Maybe what we need is not for this just to work, but also for it to
they'll bring it back. Option, right? I'm sure they'll bring it back.
Oh, I'm sure this is going to be fixed. This will be Google search.
Yeah.
But right now it was amazing how many people hated this thing.
Yeah.
Really bad.
Google has done so much damage to their brand over the last few years.
But we keep going back.
Do we?
It's like they're in a funhouse mirror where there's a rake on the ground in every direction, and they just keep walking into it like repeatedly. It's kind of strange.
I stopped using Gmail. I stopped using Google Search. I pay for Kaggy. Yeah. I stopped using Google Calendar and Google Address Book. I use Fastmail. They lost me.
Why?
Because Google.
Because Google.
They're
But wait, there's Rake 2.0.
Yeah, I know. Plenty of time to do it again.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, you can't not use Google, I suppose. But boy, it's. Yeah. I mean, I do pay for YouTube Premium. There's certain things you got to do.
YouTube is unusable.
Okay. The way I would put this is, this hasn't caused me to stop using Google services, right? Like I still rely heavily on search, obviously, but Google Drive, Photos,
there's so much
Maps.
better search than Google out there.
Okay, but I'm just saying, for me, it hasn't triggered that. But it is odd that they are making all the same AI steps that Microsoft is, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Across their similar offerings, right? Doc, Sheets, Slides, Gmail, et cetera, et cetera.
As they need to.
And I just don't, I'm like, I don't, this is not attractive to me. And
a week from tomorrow, Apple's going to do the same thing. Watch and see.
We'll talk about that in a second, actually, because I'm kind of curious how they're going to handle that. But anyway, so the one move they did make recently that I thought was a good one, and I wish, I would have attended this briefing in person if I hadn't gone to Seattle, but I watched it virtually from the press room at Build. But the guy, they were talking about, they were making fun of Microsoft and the Copilot Plus PCs because it was basically like AI is only for rich people, which I thought was pretty good. So they're bringing their Gemini models to Chromebook Plus devices, right? They've lowered the base price of a Chromebook Plus to $349, right, depending on the model. They're giving new buyers of new devices 12 months of a Google One AI Premium for free, and this is normally $20 a month. It's 2 gigs of Google Drive storage, but it's also access to whatever the most capable Gemini model is of the day. I think it's still 1.5 Pro today. And then all the Gemini stuff across Docs, Gmail, et cetera, like the Microsoft 365 Copilot type stuff. So I think that there's a good message to be had there, and it's kind of in keeping with the value proposition of Chromebook, right? So, I mean, that's to me, like, that stuff's good.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. And then, like Leo said, so WWDC's coming up, in about 2 weeks, I think?
A week from tomorrow. Is that right?
No, it's a week from
2 weeks from
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Okay.
It's the 10th. Sorry, 2 weeks from tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So every few days, we seem to get a report now from Mark Gurman, who,
2 weeks
pretty
from
good
Monday.
with this stuff.
I'm sorry.
2 weeks from Monday.
A week from Monday.
Okay.
Whenever it is. At some point, you're just making up numbers.
June
Yeah.
10th.
You know what? I'm sorry. It's in July.
Wait a minute,
I don't know why.
Let me ask ChatGPT.
So, well, it doesn't matter. This is a Microsoft show. Who cares
Continue
what it
on.
is?
Who
The point
cares?
is,
Yes.
the point is only that their thing is going to be kind of private by design, which I'm really curious to see how they swing for that one. Because they're going to do all the stuff you would expect, right? There'll be AI stuff in Siri and photos and, messages, right? All that stuff. Like we know this, but I'm just curious how what happens on your iPhone, what's generated on your iPhone stays in your iPhone kind of thing. I don't know how they're going to handle that. I'm really curious about it. It does seem
Gurman
like
they're going to have a fork in the road where they will do it on your device, iPhone or laptop or whatever, iPad, if they can, and the operating system will decide if it can't, and then we'll send it up to a black box in the cloud running an M2 chip.
Oh, and that's the private bit, right? Is that
Apple's
that black
servers.
box bit? Yeah.
So
it's still hybrid. It's hybrid AI, like everyone else is talking about. Microsoft talks about
Siri's
this last
always
week.
done that a little bit, right?
But it's also that orchestrator thing I was talking about, right? This missing piece. It may not be missing, but just a sophisticated something that will say, this is what we can do on device and this is what we can do in the cloud. And in Apple's case, when they do it on the cloud, it's not going to just publish it with a print line to google.com or whatever. So we'll see. We'll see how they do it. I'm very curious.
Yeah, lots of announcements. A week from Monday. Let's get that straight. They'll have a lot to say. And you know what? I bet it sounds a lot like what Google said, what Microsoft's doing.
But yes and no, right? I mean, again, because it's Apple. Apple is, they do things in a very unique way. I'm very curious about this.
I think, though, that they are going to do the thing that Microsoft has done with Copilot, which is add it to their Office suite and their notes.
Yeah, right.
Well, and again, need to, right? These are not optional things. You've got to do them.
Yeah, everybody wants it.
Yeah, this is just
all become table stakes now.
Table stakes, yeah. That's exactly right. Yep, this is what I observed last year sometime. It's like, so if everything is AI, then nothing is AI. Like this is just, we've just reached, if you have a messaging app, you have to have this. If you have a Photos app, it has to have this. If you have a word processor, it has to have this. So it's going to be, we're going to hit this interesting spot where, these companies' abilities to charge for this stuff is going to be a little difficult. Apple is doing great because they can subsidize it with the phone, right? I mean, it's not something Microsoft.
They still do sell Apple One, just like Google does.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure.
I mean, it's going to be,
and maybe there'll be a
parity,
version of that makes this better or whatever. We'll see.
And of course,
like I said, I'm curious.
Gurman says they've done a deal with OpenAI, so there will be a chat bot. Maybe it'll be Siri. Maybe it'll be something else.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'll be interesting.
I think now that the iPhone is hitting middle age, it makes sense the wife would go for a younger model. And,
it's the iPhone's midlife crisis.
There you go. I know it's hard to be interesting as a phone these days. They're all kind of the same.
They are the same. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
but what Apple's done is interesting, which is the phone doesn't change, but the ecosystem play gets more and more. And so you need a phone so that you can use the watch, so that you can use the iPad, so that you can use the laptops. And that's actually a smart move because a phone can't really get much better. So how would we keep people buying it? We lock them in.
And this is going to be, we're just talking about a potential refresh cycle for the PC. We'll see. But for the phone, this is in some ways a better opportunity because most phones, I mean, some Android phones actually have a lot of RAM, but most phones just don't have the specifications for this. Not just the NPU, but just the amount of RAM. Like iPhones to date have shipped with relatively small amounts of RAM compared to like an Android phone. And that's going to change like this year. It's going to be very interesting. I wonder if they'll even talk it up, right? Because they're going to have to run more and more on the device.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to see if they really do need to do that because last time I looked, the business actually was selling cloud.
The business was what business?
These big players make their living selling cloud.
Yeah, not
the
Apple,
business is
right?
Cloud.
Not Apple.
Not, the Apple being the exception.
Right.
But then why would they?
Look, if you, this is not necessarily worth doing, but if you go back and look over the enormous DOJ filing against Apple for antitrust violations, what the charges all boil down to at a very high level was a company taking action to prevent a potential competitor that could erode its hardware advantage, right? So, for example, the most obvious one for us here in Microsoft space is we don't want the Xbox streaming service on the iPhone because the iPhone is high-end hardware that people pay extra for it because they can play great-looking games. And you're making that advantage go away because now those games stream and they look great. You know, you could do them on a low-end device, right? That was the real reason they blocked that. And so you have to kind of look at it through that lens. I mean, and so how does Apple rectify that? They're magic. They're going to get companies to pay them.
Yeah.
You know, just right. I mean, they're in a really unique position here. They just don't have the same normal competitive concerns.
But again, what if the companies wouldn't pay them because it's going to cost them a fortune to operate it?
I bet OpenAI and Google are tripping over each other to one up the deals.
I don't disagree, but it wouldn't be the first time that Apple wrecked a company or two to benefit them.
Are you suggesting that this rainbow-colored unicorn in any way?
You know, ask the music industry how it feels about the 99-cent song, you know?
The good news is the companies that it would wreck are horrible companies, so who cares?
There you go. So as long as we hate them, this is fine.
That's right. It's a good, the great leveler. Give them a chance to get their own stuff going, and then they can just get rid of the partners, and we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Which that seems to be the mantra. You know, they always criticize Microsoft for that shtick. They sort of embrace and extend and extinguish thing, but Apple. Apple are the masters of it.
Has honed that to a fine tip, a shiny sharp spike. They're brutal. This came out less than I would have liked last week at Build, but browsers are getting SLMs. They're going to work locally with MPUs. The web platform is being updated to allow web apps to be more sophisticated and use those local capabilities as well. And Google, again, that was another one. More information in the briefing than there was in the public bit, which I thought was a little weird. Microsoft also did not rise to this occasion. I thought there was going to be more information there, although they talked it up a little bit in the context of Windows, at least. But I would say the browser maker that's been the most aggressive in the space is Opera. And just since we last talked, they've had two major AI-related announcements. These were the guys that they came out with one of the first in-browser AI assistants called Aria. Back in February, they announced that these features were coming in so fast that they started an AI feature drop program so that you could get the developer channel version of Opera and preview these features before they hit stable if you wanted to and provide feedback and so forth. So they've released a bunch of that over the past couple of months. And now the first major advance that came through there is heading to stable. And I've jumped to the wrong one. Well, I'll just do the second one first because I'm thinking of what just happened today. They announced that in mid-June, they are going to bring a selection of SLMs, like local language models that will work off of MPUs to the desktop versions of the browser, Windows, Mac, and Linux. They claim to be the first major browser to do this, which is curious because it's not there yet today, but When this went in preview back in, I think, February, it was 150 AI language models you could choose from. They will have over 2,000 of them available in the stable version from over 60 families of AI models. They did not specify any, so I don't know exactly what those are going to be. Some of my readers misunderstood this to mean that the browser was going to be loaded down with 2,000 SLMs. That's not the case. You as the user choose which ones you want to use.
Although, why not? Let's get them all.
Yeah, that's yeah. You thought Edge was taking up a lot of
like
RAM.
Pokemon Go, gotta get them all.
Yeah. So I thought
now you sound like Bitcoin miners.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
2,000 SLMs.
That's
they
it.
also
How would you
are.
even choose?
Yeah, I know. So I think what will happen. I would imagine that the way this. See, this is the thing. I talked to Richard about this. I was curious before the show last week. Like, how would this happen? We know in Google Chrome that Google will provide Gemini Nano on device, and they'll start installing it when you start using that Help Me Write feature that's in Chrome, right? So that's straightforward. And we would expect Microsoft will use a version of Phi. And I made the argument that they should rebrand it to Copilot something, Copilot Nano or something, right? And that would be one of the things. But during that event for Windows, they were talking about how these Copilot Plus PCs would actually ship with over 40 SLMs on disk. Like, it's crazy. Now, that's
they could send it to your house like on a shiny CD, like all the SLMs.
Yeah, Goldmaster, if you will.
Yeah, would that be cool?
So here's the thing. That's okay because the user's not choosing that, right? In other words, applications and services that run on the system, will use whatever SLM they want to use. Like that's there for developers. It's not really, the users are like, oh, yes, no. It's not like a feature thing. But in Opera, it is because you have this chat interface. So you could kind of go in and say, look, I really want to use the, whatever it is, Llama or the, I can't think of models all of a sudden. It's just Gemini, whatever, Gemma, whatever it is.
Yeah,
whatever it might be. Like I want to use it for image creation, and these are good for that. Or I want to use it for this. These are good for that. Yeah. So we'll see how that evolves. But making it available to end users. I'm trying to imagine what a list of 2,000 SLMs would look like in a UI. That's kind of interesting.
No, I mean it's worthless, right? Past what 6? You're just in the paradox of choice anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Because nobody is qualified to choose.
Yeah, this is the Italian dress.
Well, but they can say, and they do, this one's good for code generation. This one's good for chatting. This one's good for,
they'll probably have little.
Shouldn't they be good for everything? Like, why do we have to choose?
It's how they're tuned.
No, they're tuned. In other words, but that's the selection you might actually ultimately, like maybe the UI will be such that you'll say, what do you want to do today? And it'll be like, I want to.
Or it could even be automatic where it just says, oh, yeah, you need this.
Okay,
right
there
now.
you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. The thing is, they have to be installed. So some of these things, it's not going to ship with 2,000, right? Like you actually have to install these things. So we'll see how that goes. Separately, they are partnering with Google to bring Gemini AI models to Opera as well. So they'll be among those models. And they are also using Gemini for image understanding and generative capabilities, which is kind of interesting. So Aria previously had image generation capabilities, but now they're going to be using Gemini. And basically, the understanding bit is going in the opposite direction, is where you come in with an image and you say, I want to know more about what this thing is. And that's like the type of thing they're using in Circle to Search, or like back in the day, this is like reverse image search, I guess.
Right.
Except it's using AI, and it will, tell me something about what kind of sneakers is the person in this photo wearing, that kind of thing.
Right.
So makes sense.
Yeah.
Except that they're using Google. And so, that's fine. And you thought, I thought I was done with revenues. I forgot. Nvidia.
Damn it.
I'm going to have to build a special, like a quantum spreadsheet to handle their numbers, because
it's amazing.
Their growth rates don't make any sense. So, and also I would just say their margins are really high, like a $15 billion net income, which is a profit on revenues of $26 billion for a hardware maker.
That's kind of nuts.
That's better than Apple. Like that's crazy. Like that's incredible.
Are people bidding for the gear? Is that where we're at?
What's that?
Are they just bidding for the gears? It's just all auction now?
This is going to be like Azure growth. Like it has to slow down at some point, but like it hasn't happened yet. So,
well, also, are you actually making this much gear, or is this pre-orders? Like, how are they doing this?
When one processor costs $30,000, you don't have to make that much.
Well, they specifically thanked Meta for buying 24,000 of its Hopper H100 GPUs so it could train Llama 3.
Wow. Yeah.
So
they are the
customers are
Levi's of this gold rush.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. Nice shovel.
Nice shovel you have there. Would you like to pan for gold?
It'd be a shame if something happened to it. Yeah, no, this is just, and it's like, hey, by the way, we're going to do it again next quarter. So we'll see you in 3 months.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. This is
fine. We're all fine.
Look, they're also driving NASDAQ up as the other indexes.
Yeah,
go down. It's really
they're
interesting.
Doing the job that Apple used to do, right? We can all, when Leo's talking about retiring today, when he retires, if everything goes great, he can thank Nvidia for,
I wish I were in the NASDAQ.
Well, you must be doing some kind of a.
I do. It's a fund. It's a target retirement fund.
Yeah,
and, with Vanguard.
Yeah, the target is we buy Nvidia stock and then we throw in a couple of other ones just to make it look like we're diversified.
This is the sad thing is as you get closer to retirement age. Mine's for 2025, right? As you get closer to that age, they get more conservative, so they start moving the equities out, and moving the bonds in. So I'm not going to get. But still, I mean,
the way the market's going, I mean,
it's true.
You know how compound interest works. These are the gravy years.
The gravy years. Yeah.
Because all you can eat is gravy because you're
These are the Alpo years.
The teeth are done.
The Alpo years.
These are the choices.
Because I can't tell the difference anymore. I can't taste. I might as well eat Alpo.
Yeah.
It's just like Mom used to make.
Alpo's is probably pretty expensive, honestly. But anyway.
I don't know why you know that.
This is some expensive sludge.
I don't even know. Well, I'm glad to know I'm in the gravy years. Thank you, Paul. That's encouraging.
Well, I meant from I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't listen to me.
I'm in the biscuits and gravy. You know, when we take Lisa's folks out, my in-laws, that's what they order is biscuits and gravy. They love it.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. That'll
kill you.
That's what I ate.
If you want food that's kill you, might as well make it something that's really good.
My first year
they get sausage, biscuits, and gravy.
I had that for breakfast every day because it was the cheapest thing on the menu.
Sure.
And I loved it.
Sure.
I loved it.
Let's take a little tiny time out. You are watching, and I am glad you're here. Windows Weekly with the great Paul Thurrott at thurrott.com. His book's at leanpub.com. And Richard Campbell, the host of Run As Radio and .NET Rocks at runasradio.com. On we go. Paul, I always like to hear about the developer angle because I pretend in my mind.
This is actually very exciting to me.
I'm a developer. Yes.
Yeah, last week there were approximately 1,100 developer announcements at Build. It's a developer show. This makes sense.
Developer show, yeah. Well,
and it's you're going down the list. You're like, yep, AI in Azure, yep, AI here, .NET AI, yep, got it. And then they're like, oh, by the way, we're bringing back WPF. It's like, what? What did you just say? Like, I mean, like, what is like? Wait, what does that mean?
WPF never went anywhere.
Come on, no, but as a first class growing concern, we're going to improve this thing. I've since learned what they're doing, and I am fascinated by this. So a couple of years ago, I wrote several versions of an app that I called .NET Pad. Right, I wrote a version in WinForms, in Visual Basic, and then a version in C#. And I did that back to back to learn C#. Right, because I knew Visual Basic from back in the day. That's how I learned C#. And then I did a WPF version, which is my favorite version by far. It's the most feature complete. And then I did a UWP version. And I kind of played around with doing a, what we'll call a Windows App SDK / WinUI version. But it's basically UWP and it just didn't interest me as much. And I always wanted, the thing I really liked was the WPF version. But when you run this app, it looks like it's almost like a Windows 2000 app. It has that traditional title bar, traditional menu bar, traditional status bar. It's not really modern looking, right? And I have a couple times over the years looked at like, how might I modernize this? XAML Islands was a thing for a little while and it's not a thing and whatever. So I armed with the videos of the couple of sessions that talked about WPF. I watched them, one on the plane, one later. There is no documentation for this out in the world, like on a web page, but in one of the videos, they actually have the code you need to add to a project to modernize it. So I freeze framed it, typed it in. You have to download and install two things. You have to get the .NET 9 Preview 4 that was just released, right? Separate download. You have to get the preview version of the next version of Visual Studio, 17.11, I think.
Yeah, 17.11.
You have to install the right workloads, of course. You go up to GitHub and grab your project. You change the target. So in my case, the target was .NET 6, change it to .NET 9, and then add that XAML code, which references a new, as yet undocumented library. And it turns on, and it is a beautiful, modern-looking app. Now, I have work to do. Because I worked around the limitations of the platform. There's a lot of things I have to fix in the text box and some of the other options and so forth. But that's a fun thing, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to spend this year doing this. So
cool.
This capability won't be live or unstable until November when .NET 9 ships, right? Which I would imagine is probably, not necessarily, but probably when the next Visual Studio will ship, roughly.
No, now you're thinking the wrong way around. .NET 9 will definitely ship in November at .NET Conf.
Yeah. But then, okay, so Visual Studio is on a faster schedule, I hope.
Visual Studio gets quarterly updates.
Quarterly, okay.
But there are no announced like Visual Studio 2025 at this point.
No, this is 2022 1711 or whatever they're calling it. Yeah.
And it's a great conversation about, do we ever need a new major version number of Visual Studio? Right? Like, oh boy, what's happening here with the constant updates?
Ask Jerry Nixon to weigh in on that. Maybe he can tell us it's the last version.
Yeah. I'm with you, but at the same time, it's like the main customer of Visual Studio are big organizations, and new versions are really problematic.
Yep. And there was a while when they were like bang, 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 and it was like, guys, you got to stop doing this.
Well, not Studio. I mean, Studio is 2015.
Sure. I mean,
2019.
There was
2022.
The all caps years. What was
Even
that? 2012.
Emacs
that was
every year. Yeah. Emacs is up to version 29. It updates every year.
Well, I mean, technically it updates, Visual Studio. It's just that they do minor updates within the current, version. Or whatever, right. Anyway, so I'm going to spend time on this, and I got to tell you. So here, the story, which I was a little unclear on last week, because again, fog of war, and there really wasn't a lot of information. You had to watch the sessions, and then of course you can go to like the Windows Dev Center, and they've changed the site so that there's not documentation for the new stuff, but their deal is if you want to build a modern app, you're probably bringing it forward from existing code.
Yep.
And if that existing code is UWP, we have the Windows App SDK. But if it's anything else, we have WPF. And those two things, they're neck and neck. And that WPF used to be a little footnote on the bottom of the page next to WinForms. Like it's like, yeah, we have it. It's cute, like kids work on it. But obviously there were a lot of companies that have been using this thing for 20 years, and it works, and it works great. And it's this was remember, it was like it was cranked out of Windows in Windows 8.NET basically, right? I mean, this was not
the darkest times of .NET were Win 8 without a doubt, but when the App Store was filled of Win 8 apps made with C# and XAML, it kind of made that silly. But we've gone on from there. WPF's always stuck around and just seemed to be orphaned for quite a while. And now, what I saw in those announcements was, this is love. Like, we're here for you.
You might remember this, but Kevin, it was Kevin Gallo era, so Windows 10 era. So at some point in the past, 7 years or so, I want to say open sourced and welcomed kind of community involvement on WinForms and WPF, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been tied to that. No? Okay. Well, there was a big community focus regardless, whatever the announcement was. And it's been sort of community supported, right? They have all these kind of community contributions, right?
Yep.
In my app, I had to work around the lack of access to things like the modern file picker, the modern file open dialogues, or the modern font dialogues, and the modern print experience. Like I had to write around that stuff. In some cases, I called Windows Forms. Like that's one of the things you can do.
Yep.
But what I really wanted to do was make it cohesive, normal, modern app. And now I think it's definitely going to be possible. It's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's incomplete, but there's a lot in it. If you're in the developer space, you probably know about the WinUI Gallery app that they have that shows you off all the different controls and window types and all the stuff you can do with WinUI. They just released the first version of a WPF Gallery app. By the way, it's in the store and it's in preview, but it mirrors that WinUI app because it's basically the same controls and stuff. And in each case you get code so you can implement this stuff in WPF. You have to be in the the preview and .NET 9, et cetera, et cetera. It's not there yet and stable, but if you want to get looking at this with the idea of maybe switching this stuff on, I guess in November, I think is when it's going to happen. this, it's there. I mean, it's starting to be there. Like we still don't have the full API documentation yet, but it's exciting. Like
there's a lot. There seems to be a lot in motion there, and really smart people working on the problem.
Finally.
And there's a subtext around all of this about Maui, right? That Maui is a big player.
Yeah. So look, fundamentally, Microsoft's approach to creating apps on Windows hasn't changed that much in the last few years, which is like, look, we're going to meet you where you are. Maui is their cross-platform mobile app platform.
Right.
I think
really the rationalization of Xamarin Forms.
Yeah. And I think there was an expectation, whether it was real or imagined, certainly there was on my part, that it would sort of follow Flutter and make the desktop apps more sophisticated and maybe fill a hole there. And I don't know if they were never going to do that, just ran into problems. But I think eventually what they realized was like, look, we get this huge body of developers over here using WPF. What are we wasting our time on here? The goal is to create a modern WinUI beautiful app, right?
Well, and WPF can play inside of Maui. But I think like Flutter, Maui is first and foremost for iOS and Android, and now it has now they're trying to create a great desktop solution, and it's a struggle.
They bit off more than they can chew. And there was an like Flutter just had some big event, or rather Google I/O was a big event, and Flutter had some big announcements, and distinctly missing from any of that was really any talk about desktop. And as is the case in the Windows world, I think a lot of the push here is toward web app and WebAssembly, and maybe this is the right way to go for this instead of, because this stuff can just render native controls and stuff. Like, why are we doing yet another way to do the same thing? We should just do this one way.
Yeah.
But Microsoft, look, if you want to create new apps, Maui, if it's a mobile app, React Native, if it's like a desktop type app, if it's a new app, right? There's a lot of stuff out there. And then, they're supporting Windows Forms to some degree, not quite WPF, but WPF has been like jettisoned right back up at the time. I love it. Like it's like it hit the trampoline just right. Now it's like back up. It's nice. It's really unexpected. And that's just a fun, God, what a wonderful course correction. 12 years later.
I mean, it is interesting to talk about working in XAML. Like there's definitely different cultures around Microsoft development that like or dislike these different stacks, right? There's a whole group of folks who love Blazor because they want to avoid XAML.
I forgot to mention Blazor. Right. So Blazor, right. There's the whole ASP.NET Core plus Blazor. There's two types of Blazor. Blazor can be integrated into Maui. There's a whole, that's the thing. It's like there's a whole world out there. So however you approach things.
Yeah. There's a way for you, which is, that's very Microsoft, right? Like we give you lots of choice.
I respect that to a degree. Arguably there are too many options, but there are options. Yeah. And now WPF is one of them again. You're kidding me. We're going to be dusting off like 20-year-old books.
And it never went away. It just didn't get a lot of love.
Yeah, no, but now that it is getting love, I mean, I think you would be crazy as a sort of mainstream developer creating an app to make an app that only runs on Windows. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But if you're going to do that, there are far crazier ways to do it than WPF. WPF would be a great choice. That's a great choice. Because that Windows App SDK / WinUI 3 stuff is garbage is not there. It's just really complicated.
Yes.
And some of the stuff, like, for example, one of the things I looked at was like, you create like if you look at the Notepad app today, right? It looks nothing like Notepad of old because it has this kind of modern top that has not really a title bar necessarily, but an area at the top that's like a title bar and has tabs and stuff. You can do that with the Windows App SDK, but it's really hard. And
one of such a personality, Paul thing, Paul. I can't even tell you. Like different devs want to go at it this different ways. Some people are delighted by XAML, and some are repelled by it.
Yeah. Well, they're talking. See, the one bit I don't quite understand still was that they were talking about no code effort. Remember that phrase from last week? Right. There's going to be a kind of a no code effort way to do this title bar experience thing in WPF, and probably in the Windows App SDK. It's still overdue. I mean, if you ever look this stuff up, you could go down a real rabbit hole of the weird convoluted. What's the word? Convoluted code you have to write to get that to work today. It's not
unnecessarily difficult,
but it's going to get better. I love it. I love that this is happening. I can't believe
it's interesting to see where they're going to get to coming into .NET Conf and the launch of .NET 9, because clearly there's motion in all of these things.
I love it. Love it. I love it so much. This is energizing for me.
Glad you're excited. That's fun.
Yep, it's better than I thought, because I hear this, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be an asterisk here. There's always an asterisk. It's like,
Don't worry.
this is
like
we would.
Don't fool yourself. The asterisk is coming.
Okay. I don't care. I can't.
I'm going to let you revel in your joy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As they say with that,
we can talk offline if you want to ruin
sweet
my weekend.
Summer child.
You're like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Because I'm going to screw it up.
The asterisk is nigh.
Okay. The Xbox space, a couple things. After rumors, finally got the news we were expecting, because they've already said this, but they came out explicitly and said, yep, we are going to ship the next Call of Duty game, which is Black Ops 6, day and date on Game Pass, right? So good. Someone did some math there. This is generally speaking, we talk at like about $1 billion-ish every launch cycle for that thing.
Man.
How many Game Pass subscriptions would they have to sell for that to make sense? How do you keep them on Game Pass? How many months do they stay just to play that one game? I'm sure there's a whole
somebody's working this math.
Brad broke my brain the other morning when he asked me this question. I could not answer. I still can't. So that's good, right? Good. This is obviously one of the big marquee titles. They're doing a pretty good job with the PR this time, unlike, say, the last game, which started off as an add-on for the previous game and became a full title, but whatever. So great. So now, 1 year after the purchase, we will have had 2 games come to Game Pass.
Boy, oh boy.
So look, we have time. We got 5 months until then ish. I'm sure we will hear more about other Activision Blizzard games coming to Game Pass before then. I'm sure we will. I can't talk about any of them today because we don't have any yet, but maybe someday. I don't know. Anyway, finally, Atari, which is like the holding company that owns the Atari name. But you know what? Doing the right thing with that stuff, right? They're going down the retro PC thing, buying a lot of retro game thing, buying a lot of retro game companies and technologies and brands and so forth. And they just bought Intellivision from Intellivision LLC, I think was the name of the company. This is the company that in recent years was trying to foist an Amico console, right? Which is sort of like the old Intellivision, right? But poorly. I'm guessing they're going to they are going to rename the company probably to Amico, but what they've sold is the brand Intellivision. Most of the games, not all of them, and I think it's probably licensing related. They're licensing the games back to this new company, which will probably be called Amico, so they can continue making their new versions of the games. Like we knew they were making new versions of like Night Stalker and some of the other games. That's cool. And then we'll see. But the thing we don't know is like what they're going to do with this. So we'll see. They own Digital Eclipse, which is the company that does those wonderful interactive game documentaries, right? They did for Karateka. They just released like a new version, like an updated version of Wizardry, like the original. Yeah, you should go look this up.
That's a blast for the past.
Yeah, it's like a remastered, a reimagined version of Wizardry is out. So there's a bunch of fun stuff happening there. And the more and more I think about this, and it's interesting that these are the 2 Xbox stories. I would say going forward, I am much more likely to play older games again, remastered or not, than I am to play the next Call of Duty.
That's interesting. What's happened to you? I have been. You've gone totally nostalgia on me. I think.
I know. I spent. I will say. So there's a what's that? I can never remember the names of things. I'm reviewing a laptop with the highest end Core Ultra chip you can get, like a 9 series, right?
Yeah.
It has Nvidia dedicated graphics. It's an incredible computer, and it's like, well, how do I put this thing to the test, right? And one of the things I decided to do was play some games. So I put Doom Eternal on there with ray tracing, right?
As you do.
Nice.
Yeah.
That one's great. Microsoft Flight Sim, native resolution, like 3200 by 2000. Runs awesome. I loaded up the Paris thing so I could like dive bomb Notre Dame and all that stuff. That was good. But then there's a game
fixing that place, man.
I know. Yeah. Well, I did more damage to my plane than I did to the building. But I'm not trying to hit things. I'm not a good pilot. And then there's a game that just came out called Senua's Sega Hellblade 2. I believe the original game was called Hellblade Senua's Sega, which is like, seriously, guys, but whatever.
Naming is hard.
Yeah, so I've been playing that game for the past few days. I might actually just finish it. Like, it's a really good game. It's a good game. It's a third-person kind of adventure action game. It's mostly adventure, less action, but it's really light puzzle solving. It's basically just like an interactive story. But beautiful.
Does it have a joystick?
Look at that.
Nice.
You know what it goes with? My little teeny weeny Atari.
Yeah, and so by the way, if I'm not mistaken,
that's a 400.
I think that comes from that Atari company. I think they're the ones who make that.
Yeah. Oh, it's legit. Yeah.
No kidding. But it's got an HDMI port on the back.
Yeah, isn't that hysterical?
Yes, in a Raspberry
That's not how
Pi
it was in
Type C.
1985.
But
you want to attach it to a modern display, right? That's the point.
Yeah, the cartridge doesn't work. But you could, you attach it to your TV and you can play, the Battle Zone.
So I wrote an article about Atari emulation last year sometime. So there's a bunch of stuff out there for this.
But this is legit because it's got the legit ROMs and all that because it's from the holding.
Well,
company.
That's right. But you could find if whatever's not on there, it's out there.
I don't know if actually somebody told me because I was saying, it would be neat if you could do Atari Basic. Somebody told me there is a Konami code to drop out of.
No kidding.
Yeah, I can't remember if that's right or not, but that would be cool, wouldn't it? Then you could install ROMs or, if you found those old Compute magazines, type in a few games. That'd be fun.
With that chiclet keyboard, I love it. That would be fun.
Well, no, you have to. The keyboard doesn't work, right?
No.
Like you have to.
Okay, so you plug a USB keyboard into it.
I'm joking. It's not. Yeah, this is just.
You'd be like, you have my cat do it.
I'm giving it away. I didn't. I played with it a little bit, but it's funny. These games are nostalgic. But after you played Asteroids for 15 minutes, it's like
hardware is where I drew the line. I don't mind having it on a device. I actually am going to use like an iPad or something would be fine.
Right.
But I'm not going to.
Well, Apple's really opened up the emulation world by allowing emulators on iOS.
Yeah, that's huge. That's going to change a lot. That's really good news.
Yep. All right, let's take a little break, and when we come back, the back of the book, tip of the week, app of the week, Run as Radio, and the Brown Liquor Pick of the Week. But before we do that, I do want to put in a little plug, if you don't mind, for myself, for TWiT, for the club. And it really is a plug for a great group of people, almost 12,000 strong now. Smart, engaged technology buffs, the kind of people you'd want to hang out with. And you can in the club TWiT Discord. It is so much fun. But that's not the only benefit you get from Club TWiT. You also get ad-free versions of this show and all the shows. You get video for shows like Paul's Hands on Windows. We only put out the audio in public. Same with Hands on Macintosh, Untitled Linux show, Home Theater Geeks with Scott Wilkinson. So you get a lot of benefits, but really the main reason we want you to join Club TWiT, for us, the main benefit is it helps us stay on the air, to be frank. More and more we're seeing this. I have all sorts of theories about what's happening. To some degree, it's Joe Rogan and Marquez Brownlee just sucking the air out of the room. They're getting all the ad dollars. YouTube and Spotify, the handful of... Spotify's even struggling with podcasts. Times are tough. Public television, public radio, all doing layoffs. A lot of media companies doing layoffs, and a lot of podcasts going out of business. If you want us to keep going, and we believe me, I want to keep going. I don't have to, but I want to. And if you'd like to keep this show and all the shows we do on the air, it's really easy. $7 a month. That's all we ask. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. There are lots of benefits, including joining this really interesting community of tech enthusiasts. They look just like that. Please, we'd love to have you in the club. Join the club. Twit.tv/clubtwit. I hate to beg. I'm not that kind of person. And I only am doing it because I want everybody to understand that our fate is in your hands at this point. I'm okay with whatever you decide to do. That's life. I always said we'll do TWiT as long as the advertising dollars are there and the audience is there. Both are dwindling. It's going to take a vote of confidence from you. $7 a month. Twit.tv/clubtwit. I don't mean to be so bleak. It sounds bleak. It's life, right? It's the way things are. Let's get to the back of the books. We got tips and picks with Mr. PT, Paul Thurrott. What you got?
Yeah.
AT.
So I talk a lot about the in-certification stuff, obviously, and Windows is pretty much the focus. Although there's so much more, in the Microsoft space than Windows. They do this everywhere. It's really kind of terrible. And there's this notion of like dark patterns where you use deceptive language to make people make the wrong decision for them, but make the right decision for you. There's a couple of those in the Edge initial setup, right? When it says something like, hey, help us, make our Microsoft experiences more useful for you. If you go and look at the privacy statement that's associated with it, you've just told them that they can track you everywhere online, right? Which is like what they really want, right? So there's a good example of it. But I was looking at a new PC today, and you would have seen this if you bought a PC recently. There's an offer for 3 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate that you get inside. Well, it will pop up in the Windows, but you'll also see it in the Microsoft Store app, for example. So I was like, I don't really click on this that much because I already pay for this, and I'm thinking this must be for new subscribers. But I clicked on it, and actually, if you already have this thing, it will just add to the subscription. It'll just put it up by 3 months. So I did that today. But to accept this offer, you have to turn on, or you have to let them turn on recurring billing, and I don't do that.
That is a dark pattern. That has bit me many times.
Oh, it gets worse. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. It's okay. I know how to turn this thing off. What they said was you have to go to the Microsoft account website and turn off recurring billing, but they didn't tell you how to do it.
Right.
Right. Which, now, to be fair to Microsoft, later they did send an email that has a link that helps you get there, but I already knew where to go. So I went and did it. There is a set of deceptive language, dark pattern, whatever screens that appear when you go to do this. So there's a link next to your subscription on the Microsoft website that says, turn off recurring billing. I click it, and the next screen comes up and says, cancel Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. And I'm like, I don't want to cancel Xbox Game. What are you talking? What? So now the fear here, of course, is that my subscription, it was paid out to, I think, next April originally. Because I bought a year of it from, using a friend from Microsoft's code. This was a little bit cheaper, but this put it out to August, right, for 3 more months. So I was like, now am I going to lose anything if I do this? But if you scroll down, you'll see it. There's a button between a bunch of ads for all the other things you could pay them for that says turn off recurring billing. So I'm like, good. So I clicked it, and then the next screen comes up and says goodbye for now. And you're like, what? But then in tiny type, it says your subscription will end on August 5, 2025, and you will not be charged again. So all I did was turn off recurring billing, but there were multiple instances of them trying to scare me because what they want is for you to be like, whoa, oh boy, I don't want to lose this.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'll do it later, but then you forget and you keep paying, and very standard, right?
Psychological manipulation, straight up.
It's gross. Anyway, when in our battle with in certification, I mean, you're going to see this everywhere. It's not just Microsoft, obviously, but we focus on Microsoft here. So this is like this. I thought was just a great example because it's not necessarily Windows, although I did get the offer in Windows. But it's they're doing this everywhere, and this is it's not a new thing. This is more like big tech has figured this. People have been doing this for years, right? If you want to quit the Wall Street Journal, it's easy to subscribe online, but if you want to quit, you got to pick up the phone. Nobody wants to do that.
Nobody
and
wants
then they
to
try to talk
someone.
you out of it. And it's like, would you just cancel the damn thing?
So I got a good one here. Federal law requires that the credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, allow you to freeze and unfreeze your credit for free.
Yes.
What they don't, what federal law apparently doesn't require is that they actually make their system work. So I was able to do this at TransUnion and Equifax, but here, manage your freeze. Good. Well, actually, it turns out I already have an account with Experian. I'm going to log into my Experian account right here. And good, it's going to take me to the freeze. Oh, wait a minute. Welcome back. Get your free credit report now.
Oh, how exciting. But you have to unfreeze your credit.
There's no box that I can, it's just, you have to do this. By the way, so I did
must do this.
And then it failed.
You must be like, Lisa, come here. Just tell me you're seeing what I'm seeing, right? Like you doubt yourself. You're like, am I missing something?
There is no close box. There's nothing. I am going to submit my secure order now for my free credit. Oh, gee. Oh, we're sorry. We've encountered an unrecoverable system error. Please note your order has been canceled. Sorry about the inconvenience. This is the death loop I've been on for 6 months, trying to get to Experian.
Your credit has been deleted.
There's no
Right, exactly.
There's no way around this. They are federally required to allow you to freeze and unfreeze, but go ahead and try to do it on the website. So I call the number, and they say, you need to do this on the website. I finally said, operator, finally got through to a human and was able to do it.
When we moved back to Dedham in 1999, we signed up with RCN at the time, and because we got a landline, and except we didn't. When they installed it, there was no landline. It was just over IP. So I called them. I said, "What's going on with this?" And they said, "Well, we do it over the internet now, whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it says on your page it's a landline."
No, it's not.
And I'm like, "What happens when the internet goes down and I need to make a phone call?" And they said, "Well, emergency calls will still work." I'm like, "No, they won't.
No, they won't.
Yeah.
They will not."
These companies, and AT&T does it, Verizon does it, because I've had many callers on the radio show tell me they will come in and they'll cut the copper when they put in these new VoIP solutions. You don't need this anymore. They're not supposed to, but as soon as they cut it, you can't get a landline. It's like,
it's over. Yeah, that's right. You're a unicorn now.
Yeah. Never can get it again.
Yep. I'm going to when my parents pass away, I think they're going to leave it to me in their will. That's how I'll get
the landline.
Yeah.
Never get rid of your landline. That's the
You'll
bottom
never
line.
get it back.
Yeah, you'll never get it back. Ay.
What a world. And okay, so the app pick is Windows 11 version 24 H2. I mentioned up top that it went into the release preview.
Windows 11 is an app?
Well, I'm stretching the bounds here.
There you go.
You can download an ISO. It's a file. It's stored like an app.
So come to think of it.
Yeah. So if you go to the Windows Insider program if you go to the Windows Insider program preview, the Windows Insider preview, I'll get it right eventually. Downloads website, sign in with your Microsoft account, which is required. You can just download the latest release preview build, assuming you're on an x86 system. Getting the ARM version is a little more convoluted for now. I'm hoping that changes. You just download it, double click it to mount it as a drive, run setup, does the thing. It takes, 20, 25 minutes, and you're on 24H2. And the neat thing about this is doing this does not enroll you in the Windows Insider program. So your PC is still unstable. In the same way that we had 22H2 and 23H2 kind of running together, getting the same updates, we will now have 24H2 doing the same thing. So you will get updates normally through Windows Update each month as they occur. You'll be able to install preview updates if you want to do that. It's normal, right? Now, as far as are there any problems with this? Is this something you should do or whatever? You're asking the wrong question. This is Windows Weekly. Obviously, you should do this. What could go wrong? Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking you folks are technical enough to deal with this. It's not particularly problematic. I think the one big thing that's come up has been some issues getting to SMB1 based NASs, which actually shouldn't work anyway because that's not supported.
Don't use SMB1. Dad Pile will be very angry with you.
Bad.
Yeah, but there are workarounds as it turns out. But anyway, I haven't had any issues. I immediately installed this on, I bet now it's on at least 9 or 10 computers here. And I've been using it everywhere. It's fine. There aren't a lot of changes yet. The biggest one to me, you right click on the desktop or wherever, you get that, or the icon would be better actually. And you get that pop-up menu. It has names on the little icons now, not just little hieroglyphics, right? We talked about that last week. That the quick search change where you can scroll through all the options is there. Copilot's still the same. That's not an app yet, but that will come. It has the new version of Teams, although that one's very early and is not working great. And still, to me, seems like two separate apps with one icon, but whatever. They'll get it. There are some new features, but this will just get you on the train for the next version of Windows ahead of time. And it's not clear today, as a normal person in stable, if you would get it before October or if you have to do something special, but this is one way to do it. And there doesn't seem to be any downside as far as, enrolling in Insider or whatever.
So you're saying I should do this?
I would do it right now, Leo.
Okay.
I'd do it right now.
Deal.
Yep.
We'll be back.
Pause the show. He's working now.
I see no downsides.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yep.
Richard Campbell, Mr. Runs Radio. What's coming up?
Last show of the month. This is the one I did with Christina Wheeler, regular on the show. She's one of my, was a SharePoint person, now Power Apps person. Although the bigger thing that happened was since the last time she was on the show, she joined Microsoft. So she was an MVP for forever, but now she's actually a blue badge. So yeah, a senior technical specialist for business applications. But she's more or less still doing the same job, just from the inside instead of the outside, which is helping folks do the extensibility they want to do. And that's what the show ended up being about almost entirely, was how Power Apps not only just your sort of forms over data apps to build in workflows for a bunch of things, but can extend a lot of the SaaS apps that you're using. So need a couple extra fields in CRM? Power Apps can do that for you. Want to be able to migrate data between, it's consolidated from multiple sources? Yeah, Power Apps great for that. So we just ran down this gamut of the different ways to approach these apps. And of course, Power Apps has more than one way to build things. So it was also this, okay, well, when would I use a Canvas app versus a model-driven app? And then it led into conversation on the Dataverse and so forth. And of course, because no conversation is complete with any Microsoft person, we had to talk about a Copilot or two. So, and she actually dug into the Copilot Studio a fair bit, which I really enjoyed because it's a heck of a tool. So that's what I got for Power Apps, and that's Christina's.
Let's do some brown.
I got to figure out Power Apps.
Juice.
I know so little about this.
All right, listen. I pick whiskeys that I haven't talked about before, and they're usually ones I've tried before. But you don't necessarily know the whole story. And then as you start digging, I mean, I know they're really good sources now for whiskey information and things, and I sort of pull things together. And sometimes stuff goes wildly off the rails. Like, just here we go. Are you ready? Because we're going to Aberdeenshire. Okay, now Aberdeenshire is the land around the city of Aberdeen on the east coast of Scotland, nominally part of the Highlands, but recognizing the Highlands are sort of a catch-all for everything north of the lowlands, right? Except they've carved out Speyside and so on, and the islands are handled separately. Because really you're talking about a very different terroir over on the east side of the Cairngorms versus the west side of the Cairngorms. Now, you look at the name of the whiskey, and how do you think you pronounce that?
I don't attempt ever to.
Yeah.
Founders Reserve.
Oh, yeah, Founders Reserve. Good one.
Cask Strength. Glengarry.
The correct pronunciation is Glengarry.
Geary?
Obviously.
Okay, good luck. Okay.
So it's like Glen Wister.
Yeah,
the word Glen being Gaelic for valley, which we've seen that over and again with Glen Grant and so forth. But Geary is not actually Gaelic so much as it's Doric.
What?
And that is an even older language. Now, the word Doric is kind of weird because that's actually a Greek origined word.
Yeah, it's like Ionic.
Yeah,
well, different column types.
Yeah, so there's the Doric, the Ionic, the Corinthian, and so on, right?
I'm impressed. And very nicely done, Mr. Richard Campbell.
Well, and derived from the Dorian people, which are really kind of proto-Greeks. They fought the Peloponnesians. Like, this is old school stuff. And in fact, that's what happened to the word Doric in intellectual circles going from the Greeks forward, where Doric actually ended up meaning more like the column itself, simpler, coarser, more reliable, more genuine.
Yes.
And so as you get into etymology of language going into the Renaissance, and you have all this fragmented language of Anglo-Saxons and so forth across the European plains, the term Doric came to mean the more sort of rough, genuine version of a language versus Attic, which was considered the sort of smarter but corrupted versions of the language.
What was the other one?
Doric and Attic.
Attic?
Attic. Attic. Doric and Attic. So, why the heck does this end up in northeastern Scotland? Like, this is the crazy part for me. Because that part of Scotland, like, the important part to remember about Aberdeen is it's further away from London than it is from Bergen. Right? Or even or Dublin for that matter. Like, that Doric language isn't that Saxonish. It's more Scandinavian. And so the Geary is this mashup between Gaelic and an older Scandinavian language that was derived. But to help preserve it, they've adopted the name. So I'm not misusing the word Doric, like it's not applied scientifically per se, but that those Scots in that part of the world have said, hey, we have our own dialect. We like this dialect, and we are going to protect it. To the point where the late, great Queen Elizabeth II spoke Doric.
What?
She knew the language.
Wow.
I mean, she also spoke English, obviously. But I would be clear, Balmoral Castle, which was the summer residence for the royal family, about an hour. An hour west of Aberdeen, up in the Cairngorms.
So is it a kind of version of Gaelic?
So there's the Gaelic influences, but this is also the Scandinavian influences, which have more of the Doric origins on the two of them. I would also say, because you look at the spelling and go, what is this? Well, they also use different symbology before the Latin alphabet was applied to them. And we've got to remember that as much as the Queen was a lovely person that everybody seemed to get along with, the relationship between the English and the Scots are fairly adversarial at times. And so one of the aspects of language up there is obfuscation, because it's a great way to sort the local from the foreigner. The English intent in Scotland most of the time was to extract more taxes and wealth. So you can't just go in there and burn the whole place down. Then there's no wealth. You have to subvert it. And so language became a tool to help rout out the spies. Anyway, we were talking about whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
And more importantly, what Glengarry actually means is the Valley of the Granaries.
Wow.
So that area in the east grows barley nominally for thousands of years. There's evidence that there was barley in the UK 6,000 BC.
Wow.
So Neolithic peoples already had grain. Now, the grain was originally from the Persian areas, but it had migrated pretty quickly. Productive crops don't take long to move, and that's largely a latitude-based move in northern England, into northern Europe, and then across onto the islands. So, and this place has been growing grain for so long, there's no records. That place was named for its granaries then. And we know perfectly well that when you have too much grain, you got to store it somehow before it goes bad. And turning it into alcohol is a pretty good strategy for that. One I recommend. The town that Glengarry is actually in is called O'Mildrum. Which is from the Doric, not the Gaelic, but the Doric, Mildroma, which means hill of the ridge, which is literally where it's located, on the hill above the valley.
Wow.
So again, this is a part of the world old enough that largely their place names are the old language version for how to describe the location. Now, as much as I'm painting a picture of this being away from all the other whiskey regions, even though it's in the Highlands, it is less than an hour's drive to Glenfiddich and Dufton and so forth, with the space side, the Craigellachie, where I would be, or Craigellachie, I'm always mispronouncing that name. Now, there's an argument that Glengarry is actually the oldest distillery in Scotland. The oldest paperwork they can find is its incorporation in 1797, but there's plenty of evidence to show they were making whiskey there way before that. I mean, the fact that they've been growing grain there for a couple of thousand years, it's not like one day they said in 1797, we could make alcohol.
Look, you could turn this into booze.
And doubly so that John Manson, the one who's on that original paperwork, is part of the Manson family of that region that owned farms and merchant shops and tanneries, like long-scale, long-term family. And multiple family members were involved in it for decades. It stays in the family for almost 100 years before harder times in the late 1800s, that it gets sold to T.G. Thompson, which also partnered with William Sanderson. Sanderson's a legend in whiskey making from the late 1800s. He wanted to get into the blended whiskey business, so he poured enough money in to experiment with 100 different blendings and then had them tested with various people and found that the most popular one was that 69. And in fact, that 69 is still sold to this day, more than 100 years later. Unlike many distilleries of that era, this one survived prohibition. It did it by selling at a discount rather than going bankrupt to Booth Distilleries in 1933. ultimately sold off to Scottish Malt Distillers, which was part of the Distillers Company, which eventually becomes Diageo in 37. Although this is not owned by Diageo, they ended up selling it off. Shuts down during World War II like everybody else, come back up slowly as grain availability grows after the war. And then in the mid-60s, they had a crisis with their water source that actually shut the whole place down for 2 years. And in that time, a different group grabbed it in 1970, a fellow by the name of Stanley Morrison of Morrison Bowmore. So in the 1950s, Stanley Morrison and a couple of partners bought up a few distilleries. One of them was the Bowmore Distillery, hence the name. And then in 1970, they also acquired Glengarry. In 84, they bought Auchentoshan, and then there's other mergers after that. But one of the first things that Morrison worked on was fixing the water problem and hired some local professionals who found another spring not too far away in a farm over, made a deal. And so they were up and running by 1972. They switched over to gas-fired stills in 72. Floor maltings it ended in 79 like most other places. And they were back in running well until the 90s, until 1994, when Suntory buys Morrison Bowmore all up. So that's Bowmore, Auchentoshan, and Glengarry, now part of Suntory. And there's a brief retooling then, so they shut down for a little while. And then in 97, they reopen as a Suntory holding, making the Glengarry that I've got here, this kind of whiskey. They make a few other additions. Here's a few things. I have toured this distillery, not since the latest set of renovations. I toured it in the 20 teens. Most of the buildings are original. You know, one of the things you'll notice, I've told these kinds of stories about distilleries now for a year and a half. And every time, one of the things I talk about is the major fire. Glengarry never had a major fire. Huh. There are buildings from the 1700s still there, still in use. Cool. They've modernized a lot of the internals, but one of the things you won't see are gigantic sweeping buildings because the place was built a couple hundred years ago, and it just doesn't they didn't build that way. So it still has all that original infrastructure.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Oh,
but I haven't seen the latest edition, and I'm going to talk about that just in a minute. So up until recently, this will be the coda, my other digressions beside me getting hung up on Doric. They were running about 1 million years production. They use a dry yeast process, no cream. I know you're disappointed. They use louder mashes, which is very modern technique. So they produce a cloudy wort that has more flavor. Stainless steel washbacks. They got 8 of them. They run on 2 wash stills and 2 spirit stills of about 20,000 liters and 11,000 liters respectively. Their lie arm design is unique. Wide bottom stills with relatively short swan necks, but long horizontal lie arms. Give it part of their distinctive flavor. They primarily barrel in bourbon, finish in sherry, and their dunnage rooms are dirt floor, low walled, horizontal stacking, 3 high. Very old school. They make a 12, which is harder to find than their Founders Edition or Founders Reserve, which does not have a year on it, which means it's probably younger than that, or at least there's something younger in it to stretch their production because they do not make a lot. Not the simplest thing to find. It comes in at 48%, about $55 US for a bottle. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you except that that's just a lovely dram.
Is it really good? Oh, that's so great.
Fruity,
nice
forward, no peat. It's old Highland and so forth. So this is a pretty good story. Here comes the crazy part. In 21. Suntory shuts them down again, spends $7.5 million US on the place. And in 22, they reopen. And Suntory, now, look, I keep having this conflict. You don't want to like these big companies, the Diageos, the Suntories, the Pinot Royards, but they've also go in and they add things to places that have been, like Maker's Mark making, cellar editions and so forth, all because these bigger companies get involved. Well, Suntory has picked Glengarry to do a kind of modernization that hasn't been done before. And part of it is going back to old techniques. So one of the things they've done is gone back to direct fired wash stills. Now, years ago, 40 years ago, most stills switched over to steam because it was safer, right? Your risk of explosion is lower. You don't want to mix alcohol with steam. with fire, but also that it's tough to control when you're directly firing a still. It's a lot of heat. If you're just pumping in steam, the old steam wash stills that Gungiri had, they only run it up to maybe 140 centigrade, which 285 Fahrenheit. That's 3-bar pressurized steam, nothing too dramatic. But direct fire can get dramatically hotter, 1,000 degrees, and the Maillard reaction, that sort of browning toasting effect, doesn't even start until 150 Celsius, like 300 Fahrenheit. So you're kind of missing that out when you go to steam. So they want to go back to they've moved back to the old technique where they're actually using fire on the wash still specifically. Now, besides the safety aspect, the other problem of using direct fire is because it's so much hotter, you have overheating problems. Often you can kick up foam into the still to the point where it'll actually go across the lie arm and into the rectifier and really make a mess of things. So the difference now, of course, is while they're using the old technique, they have modern technology. So they now have a set of sensors that will carefully control the burners to not overheat the mesh and to manage the foam for them. But then here's the crazy one. They're going back to floor maltings. Now, admittedly, this is part of the Morrison Bowmore group, and Bowmore is another distillery that does its own floor maltings. The reason to go to commercial maltings, obviously, is availability of grain and consistency of product, high yield. Like, it's a very easy way to go. You make a lot of product. Going back to your own floor maltings actually ties into this idea of doing direct fire, because in the end, your goal is to manipulate sugars in a new flavor. And most of these standard maltings have a limited range of what they can do with the sugar manipulation. So do your own. Lower yield, but you have more control. And so you can make a more unique product. And the final part of the whole pitch that Suntory did here and spent their money on was lowering the carbon footprint of distilling. So not only are they managing their heat and resourcing locally so that they consume less resources to make the alcohol, they're also managing their heat better. So the excess heat that comes off the distillation process is used to preheat water. So they actually need to use less heating overall to run the system. And they're doing lots of water recapture to the point where they figure they can cut the water consumption for producing a liter of alcohol in half. So part of this is capturing old technique, which appeals to the whiskey aficionado a lot. And the other part of it is modernizing in a way that is beneficial to an industry that's fairly heavily consumptive. The problem is that was 22 and it's 24. There's no product yet. They've been laying up for 2 years. It's going to be probably 10 years before we really get to try this. So they're going to continue to produce the original edition because that's what's in their barrels, right? They've got some time on that. But all this cool new stuff we're talking about, we're probably not going to be able to taste it for a decade.
Now, I saw Bevmo has the 12 year. Is that okay?
That's fine, yeah. Around $50?
Yeah, $69.99.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, it's got a year dedication on it, so somewhat more expensive than the Founders Reserve.
Right.
I'd drink either. They make a set of vintages as well, which often sell out immediately. Not worth your effort. Like it's a kind of a crazy thing, but it's almost, they take old barrels, they do a bottling. It'll be a run of a couple of thousand bottles, and they're often gone in minutes from collectors. I'm having a tough time being angry with Suntory, but I get pretty tired of collectors because putting bottles on shelves seems like a waste.
Sad.
You should drink them, right? That's what this is about.
So I don't drink, but I love buying these for my brother-in-law because he loved your Clonakilty. Because when he comes over, he really appreciates it. So I'm going to try to get some of this Glengarry.
And then you run the YouTube video so you can hear the story of how it was made. There you go.
And I won't tease him by asking him how to pronounce it. Wow, I love the stories behind these. That's what makes whiskey so interesting.
I came in just to try and answer the questions about the whiskey, but then you fall in love with the madness of how these things happen, and so then I want to share it with you guys.
Yeah, the story's great. Glengarry, go ahead and try to find that online. Glengarioh.
Glen Worcester.
Glen Worcester. And they say Beam Suntory, so that's the official name.
Or Suntory Beam, depending on who you ask.
It's Jim Beam and Suntory. Wow.
Yeah.
But as long as I think they understand that there's a lot of value in these old names and not to mess with them.
Well, and culturally, that's always been the thing, is protect the name, right? Bring the name back around again.
Right.
So they're still doing that.
Glengarry Highland Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Founder's Reserve, if you can find it. But I did see the Bevmo has the 12-year, so probably not anymore. It's probably all gone right now. Very fun. Thank you, Richard Campbell.
My pleasure.
Richard runs Run As Radio at runasradio.com. That's where you also find .NET Rocks if you're a .NET aficionado. Paul Thurrott is at thurrott.com. Become a premium member. There's lots of great stuff in front of the paywall and behind the paywall, but it's nice to support Paul by becoming a premium member. I am. You can also buy his books, leanpub.com. There's the field guide to Windows 11, now with Windows 10 inside. And, of course, his newest, Windows Everywhere, which is kind of a history of Windows through its languages and dev tools. Paul, have a great week. Are you you're going to stay in Macungie for the while? The summer, maybe?
Next show, I'll be in Mexico.
Oh, see, I knew it.
There you go.
I knew it. You're going down?
I'll be in Toronto.
Oh, well, I'll get new lower thirds ready right now.
There you go.
You're going in the hot season, though, Paul. Shouldn't you go in the winter? And
No, this is not. They don't have the same seasons we have.
You're at altitude.
Oh,
rainy
that's right.
season.
That's right. Oh, well, rainy's nice. Yeah,
rainy's good.
Rainy's nice. Well, have a safe trip, and we'll talk to you in Mexico City next week. And Richard, we'll talk to you in Toronto next week. Awesome. This is the show where you find out what's going on in the Windows world. It's Windows Weekly for all the winners in the world and the dozers as well. We do it every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can watch us do it live. We stream it live on YouTube, youtube.com/twit/live. If you hit smash the bell, as the kids say, you'll get an automatic notification when we go live, which is right at the beginning of each show.
Don't you dare smash any bells.
Smash my bell, yeah, I'll smash your bell. You can also find a dedicated channel just for Windows Weekly on YouTube. We have audio and video at our website, twit.tv/WW. Probably the easiest thing to do is subscribe in your favorite podcast app. That way you'll get it automatically the minute it's available, which will be shortly this afternoon after Kevin King does his magic. Of course, if you're a club member, you get an ad-free version. That's nice. Saves time, saves money. Well, it doesn't really save money, $7 a month, but we love our club members. Thank you, club members, for making this show possible. twit.tv/clubtwit. Paul, Richard,
Here.
have a great week. Safe travels, and we'll see you next time on Windows Weekly.